Divorce happens. In fact, it happens to almost 50% of first marriages. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Divorce Happens, a podcast to educate, inspire, support, and yes, make you laugh through divorce and beyond so that you can start fresh on the next phase of your journey. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh.
You get divorced. You get divorced.
Getting divorced?
I'm getting a divorce.
You're getting a divorce.
Because she's getting a divorce.
So what if I get divorced?
Hello. Welcome back to Divorce Happens, the show where we support you before, during, and after divorce with education, inspiration, and a little bit of laughter because, as you know, divorce happens and then you start fresh. This is part 2 of a 4-part series we are doing with Allison McFadden, who is one of our amazing experts, all about mediation, everything you need to know before you go to mediation. The episode prior to this was about an overview of mediation. If you've never heard of mediation, go back and listen to that episode. Today, we are talking about how to prep for mediation, which is such a great topic because nobody teaches you this, and there is a way to prep before walking into this. Okay, Allison, what do we do? How do we prep for mediation? What does that look like?
Yeah. So I think the lack of preparation is one of the biggest reasons why mediation doesn't work sometimes. Like a mediator is not a magician. I say this all the time. You don't walk in and they wave a magic wand and you reach an agreement, right? It's a process. You have to participate. You have to prepare. And doing so gives you the best odds that you will be able to reach an agreement, right? These are things that you can control in terms of how you're preparing. So, and I think it really goes back to, when you're choosing a mediator, right? You and your spouse, you've had the conversation, you've talked to them about mediation, the benefits. They're either on board with mediation or they're at least willing to go and talk to a mediator and understand more about it, right? So it's important that you really do understand the process and understand what you are kind of signing up for as part of mediation. And so having an opportunity to talk to the mediator, ask them questions, it will help you feel more comfortable if you have an understanding of what this is going to look like. You might still be nervous. Like it's normal to be nervous, right? But you won't necessarily have the same feelings of anxiety and fear that can make it really hard to negotiate if you're in that place. So maybe coming up with like a list of questions that you want to ask the mediator. It's some of the things that I tell clients or I talk to people about are understanding what the mediator's style is. There's some people who are more what they call like facilitative and are going to ask open-ended questions. To the other end of the spectrum where people are more evaluative and they might give you a little bit more an idea of what their thoughts or opinion are or give you more feedback. And then there's a lot of mediators who are maybe in between and use different styles, different tools from their toolbox, depending on the situation, right? You also want to understand like how long these sessions are going to be. Am I signing up for 2 hours at a time? Is it just going to go until we're done, kind of open-ended? What does that look like? As well as talking to the mediator about what topics are going to be discussed. What do I need to be prepared for as part of the mediation? And then other things that you might have, specific questions if you have concerns about, things potentially getting overly emotional, how a mediator might deal with that. If you want to be in the same room with your spouse, or if you want to be in separate rooms, addressing that with the mediator, how they handle those kind of situations. The more you kind of know about what's going to happen in mediation and what it's going to look like, the better you can prepare.
And you're allowed to ask questions before mediation to the mediator about the process, I assume.
Absolutely. Yep. You should be able to ask questions about the process. You should be able to ask questions about, what you're signing up to, because you generally have to sign an agreement to mediate in order to move forward the mediation, right? You're agreeing that this process is voluntary, that it's confidential, that the mediator is a neutral third party, that they aren't going to be there to make decisions for you. all of those are things that as a mediator, I want to make sure that people understand coming into mediation. And while they might be able to get some of that information online by listening to podcasts, whatnot, every mediator really is different. And so getting that information specifically from the mediator is really important.
Yeah, that's really good advice. What about things like somebody that's worried that they're not going to feel comfortable speaking up in mediation or that they're going to be bullied in mediation by their partner? Is there a way to quell some of those fears?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest things that come up. Like people are looking for a little extra support as part of the mediation process, right? They don't want to have to go it alone. And so for some people, that might mean that they have a divorce coach or a pre-mediation divorce coach that they're working with who might help them deal with some of those concerns, whether it's communication style, negotiation style, how to advocate for themselves, right? Other folks might say, I'm gonna consult with an attorney on the side so that they can help me prepare and be prepared to speak on some of, why I'm asking for things in the law. So I have a good grasp of that. Other folks might say, I don't want to go to mediation with just my spouse. You can bring an attorney to mediation. That often happens, right? So there's a lot of different ways that it can look that can address some of those concerns, and make sure that people feel supported throughout the process.
Wait, how does that work, Allison? You can bring a lawyer to mediation. What
Yeah.
what does that look like in terms of the mediation process?
Sure, sure. So you can bring a third, like it doesn't just have to be you, your spouse, your co parent, right? You can bring other people into the mediation sessions, and that often does happen. I usually tell folks like everybody needs to sign off on an agreement to mediate. Everybody needs to know that everybody's coming in. We're not surprising each other here, right?
Mhm.
But you can have an attorney who comes, you can have a financial advisor who comes, so that they can give you information. They can participate in the mediation, providing guidance, right? So, in a mediation session, sometimes everybody, if we're doing it over Zoom, which I often do, or if we're in person, everybody's in the same room and we're all having one big group conversation, right? If you have your attorney there with you and you want to have a private conversation with your attorney, you can go into on Zoom, a breakout room, in person, a separate room, talk over maybe whatever proposals on the table, and then come back with your attorney. And same if there's, a financial advisor, or sometimes folks, if they had worked with a financial advisor for years, they want to bring that person in because
Right.
they're really the one with the most knowledge. Um, so yeah, making sure that everybody's on the same page and okay with the other people who are going to be there and that they know ahead of time. But it's definitely, one other thing that I think people don't realize is that even if you go and file with the court is likely to order you to go to mediation as part of the litigation process. So, in that sense, or in those cases, there's very, very often attorneys who are coming to those
Mm.
mediation sessions. When it's a private mediation, it's up to the parties to, decide whether they think that's helpful, whether they need that extra support, whether financially it makes sense to bring their attorney. There's a lot of different factors for them to think through.
That's fascinating. It really is kind of a choose your own adventure type of
Yeah.
divorce in that way.
I
Which
like that
is
phrase.
yeah, which is and I mean, and I get it. My own mediation started as a mediation on Zoom, and then we each got our own lawyers, and the lawyers kind of ended up hashing it out, and it we didn't go to court. We weren't even close to going to court, right? And so it was just like a really, I don't know, good process to get it done. But I always remind people like there's no one way that everybody does it, right? Like there's always going to be different ways to do it, and I guess, my other question for you, Allison, is what would you say to somebody to prepare to come to mediation in terms of like, do they need documents? Do they need like birth certificates? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think ahead of time, making sure that you understand like what the topics are that are going to be discussed at mediation, and making sure that you feel comfortable with those topics. So beforehand, you might want to go and talk to an attorney to get an idea of what the law is. You might want to talk to a financial advisor. If you're missing documents, you don't usually need to bring things like a birth certificate or a marriage certificate. Usually what we're looking for are like account statements,
Right.
a mortgage statement, right? Things that we're trying to understand, maybe a school calendar so that you know
Mm.
when summer break is and holidays. With the holidays, the kids get off, things like that. But I think you also want to have overall a kind of general intention or goal that you can speak to as to why you're there for mediation, what you want to accomplish. That can be kind of like, your North Star in terms of coming back to it. And that's why I'm here when there's those moments where maybe where you feel like you're not making progress, right?
Yeah.
I think also coming up with whether you're working with an attorney or whether an attorney is accompanying you to mediation or whether you're going in with just you and your spouse, being prepared to have some proposals ready, things that you are comfortable offering or proposing, that you've thought through, that you're ready to talk about why you think these are in your family's best interest, how they align with the different intentions and values that maybe you've identified. But being prepared to not just have, one solution that you're putting on the table and that's the end all be all, but being
Right.
ready to talk things through and have some alternatives can really help prevent the impasses that sometimes can happen when people are really just like wedded to one outcome.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And what about before we let you go, how do you prepare yourself mentally for mediation?
Yeah. So that again can be a piece of divorce coaching. I will say I've heard some really great tips from like somatic therapists about things that I've just loved in terms of being able to center yourself, some different techniques, not my area of expertise, but some different things that people can really do even while they're in the mediation session, different, techniques. So I think whether you're talking to, again, somebody along those lines, a therapist, but having a professional that can maybe help you because this is still a hard process, right? Like you said, choose your own adventure. You're just choosing your kind of hard
Yeah.
when you're choosing mediation. It's not easy. There's going to be things that come up that might trigger you or that are difficult to talk about. And so, not just trying to sweep that under the rug, but identifying those things that might trigger emotions to come up and having a plan for how to handle them that you come up with, again, whether it's therapist, somatic stress professional, whoever
Mm-hmm.
can help you kind of manage that so that the conversations can really be productive.
Absolutely. Oh, this was super helpful. If you are listening to this and want to get in touch with Allison, her link will obviously be in the show notes and you can find her at Fresh Starts. This episode was about prepping for mediation. The one before this was an overview of mediation. And next episode, we're going to talk about what it is actually like to be in mediation for anybody that has been curious about that. So stay tuned for that. Go listen to the first episode. Go share this with somebody who's considering mediation. Allison, thank you for all of this info, and we'll see you next
Yes,
time.
of course. Thank you so much.
Divorce Happens is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the only divorce registry platform for everything you need to begin again, including home items, hype team, and everything in between. Remember, divorce happens, and then we start fresh. We're here to support you before, during, and after divorce. Head to freshstartsregistry.com for more info.